TauX every day. Follow socials, here's the way.
Gurl TauX, every platform come to play. Catch our vibe, don't delay.
Facebook, YouTube streams, scrolling through your daily memes. Gurl TauX show, don't miss out. Join the fun and see what Gurl TauX is all about. Keeping it real, it's what we do. So tune in now and join our crew. Lights moving through the screen, click subscribe, don't be mean. Upbeat chatter, it's our routine. Gurl TauX show, don't miss out. Join the fun and see what Gurl TauX is all about. Gurl TauX is who we are. Come hang with us on your tablet, phone, or screen. Anywhere Gurl TauX can be seen. Gurl TauX show, don't miss out. Join the fun, see what Gurl TauX is all about. Update stories, laugh and cry. It's Gurl TauX, so don't question why. It's the show that you'll adore. Come back daily to get some more. Gurl TauX show, don't miss out. Join the fun, see what Gurl TauX is all about. Gurl TauX is who we are. Come hang with us on your tablet, phone, or screen. Anywhere Gurl TauX can be seen. Gurl TauX show, don't miss out. Join the fun, see what Gurl TauX is all about. Gurl TauX, log in now, watch our show. Likes and comments, let them flow. Every day we're on our way. Gurl TauX show is here to stay. Gurl TauX show, don't miss out. Join the fun, see what Gurl TauX is all about.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Monday. How is everybody doing? This is Gurl TauX episode 110 episodes now. All right. Well, we are going to keep going and we're going to keep doing this thing we call YouTube. And we are also on Rumble. Just so you know, I do need subscribers, so please come and subscribe if you like what we're doing. And today's going to be a little bit different show. I'm not going to talk about politics much. There might be a little bit in it, but it's not going to be related to like really what's going on. It's going to be related to the topic at hand. So, as you can see here, which you might not be able to see, I guess I have to move these things so you can actually see them. There's one. We'll move this over a little bit. And then we'll move this one here. There's one. Let me stretch. Here's another one. So we're going to move this like way down here. We're going to put these right here, right in front of me, sort of. All right. So as you can see, we got some planes here that are, this one's a little bit Orville Wilbur Wright-ish. But they are cool because they were actually made for my mom years ago. This one here was made by my cousin, Patrick Ochoa, and made years and years ago because my mom was a pilot. Now, I've talked about it a couple times before that my mom was a pilot, so it's not like I've never spoken of it before. A lot of people know this, and but I thought, she was on a show one time and we talked a little bit about her flying experience. So I am going to actually do a little bit more of an in-depth with her today. So, I brought these on the set. I also brought, let me see if I can turn my camera real quick. We're going to flash by my mom real fast. And I'm going to show you, and we'll show it again probably later. But see that in the background right behind my mom? That is her flight suit. That's back in the day, and she'll tell you all about it. Yeah, that was mom's flight suit. So, anyway, any McCoozle, as they say. Um, let's and my mom gets after me for the ums. Stop with the ums. But ladies, today we're going to soar with my mom, Victoria, a pilot who shattered the sky's glass ceiling in 1963. Buckle up for a hell of a flight. She is a trailblazer when it comes to flying. Women's flight in aviation, that was a little bit earlier than her day. Like I said, was she ahead of her time? Now, there are female pilots that went before her, very few, and there are many women that have flown after her. So she didn't start it. She wasn't the beginning. Mom doesn't like when I ad lib to her statement, but when people ask her about Amelia Earhart, she says, "Well, I didn't get lost." Now I say, I add the bitch word in there. That bitch got lost. I think it's funnier, but Mom goes, "Do you have to do that?" Anyway, we do have a couple Q&As that I had put together from some people who had wrote in, and this show was per request. I have been asked to do this show because there were people that were like, we want to hear more from your mom. So I did, and I don't know if you can even see this one. We'll put that one down on her table here in a minute. So this is for my sisters, my women out there, my tribe, my crew, ready to fly and fight fierce, because we're diving into the women's battle to rule the skies. There is a time and a place, and there are people who now get a little concerned about the DEI. And I don't know that DEI was really a thing when my mom was doing this, because that wasn't how they weren't out to hire specific genders or specific races to fit quotas at that time. So who here is ready to honor a legend, my mom, and maybe go climb your own wings after this show? Let's take off. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share Gurl TauX with your crew or your tribe to help build my tribe and keep this sisterhood soaring through the skies. I am going to tell a joke, because I tell a joke every day. They're usually really bad dad jokes, but that's all right. I'll tell a joke. Mom probably has a good pilot joke here in a second. Why'd the pilot ditch her date? He kept trying to control her altitude or attitude. That should say attitude, because planes do have an attitude, right?
Right.
Yep, they have an attitude, not just an altitude. Or how about, why is a bad pilot like a bad liar? Because they both smoke and burn. Ladies, we're flying our own skies today. Victoria showed the world who owns the cockpit, and we're here to keep that fire burning. Let's set the stage. Mom,
Yes.
before you were flying, what were you doing?
I was a model.
Yeah, you were a model in the 60s. Tall, blonde, bombshell, 6 foot tall.
5'11".
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me when she was a kid, when I was a kid, she was a kid. When I was a kid, that she was 5'12". And I'm like, that's called 6 foot. She did not want to say the word 6 foot. So, sisters, rewind to 1963. Men owned the skies, and women were barely allowed near a cockpit, mostly to serve the coffee. Only 1% of pilots were women per FAA records. Yet legends like my mom, Victoria, said, "Hold the coffee." I want to go in the cockpit. She went from modeling to flying celebrities, astronauts, even on Air Force One, proving women could outfly any dude. But it was a dogfight. The old boys club threw shade. I'm sure some snide remarks, job blocks, you name it. Victoria fought through all that, paving the way for 5% of women pilots today. Her story screams one truth. Whether it's aviation or your hustle, we don't beg for a seat, we take the controls. My Gurl TauX sister, Andrea, I'm going to say a little shout out to her. She's married to a pilot, but she pushed her way through and became a Marine. So I think it's pretty amazing when women push through and do things that are not what's expected of them. You're expected to grow up and go to college, or back in your day you were expected to get married and have children. But we're not passengers, we're captains. Let's honor Victoria and soar. Who's with me? I'm sure that everyone wants to hear her story, so let's get to it here in just a second. Women in aviation. In 1963, women were 1% of U.S. pilots. And it's only up to 5% today. Isn't that incredible?
That's sad.
That's really quite sad, thinking that we've only increased it by 4% in that many years. Now, if you're training to do anything, to be a pilot, to be a store owner, to own your own business, be an entrepreneur, build empire, break barriers. Victoria's fight was like any of ours. And you have to stay fierce the entire time and push yourself harder and more than anyone else. Women in aviation. There's a pilot's history story on the Smithsonian. I am not going to play that because this story today is about my mom, not about all the other women. But don't forget to click that like button and slam subscribe for us, and shout out to Gurl TauX to be part of our crew. Let's keep that spark flying. An in-depth interview with my mom, Victoria, exploring her trailblazing career as a pilot starting in 1963, overcoming gender barriers and flying high on missions that a lot of men would have shied away from. We have questions to dig into that journey. Ladies, I'm honored to bring out my mom, Victoria, a pilot who took flight in 1963 and never looked back. From modeling to flying celebrities, astronauts, commercial routes, and on Air Force One, she's a legend. Let's hear her story. All right, I'm going to stay out of this quite a bit because I really, really want you to be the majority of this right here. So I am going to probably just ask the questions and leave the camera on you most of this time. I might turn to me if I talk a little bit much, and I see these planes are really just in the way instead of and I will move something while I'm doing that. But I'm going to ask you your first question. How did you pivot from modeling to becoming a pilot in 1963?
Well, I was visiting my mom, who lived in Sacramento, California. And I was driving down the road, and they had a sign that said, get your solo license for $99. I thought, well, that's not quite a big challenge. So I walked in there, put $100 down, and I said, show me. Well, the first guy that came out was a flight instructor, and we went out and walked around the plane, and he showed me what the aileron was and what the elevator was, and I'm going, okay, this goes up and down, right? And he kind of looked at me like, oh, well, another dumb blonde. And I go, okay, I can handle that. So we got into the cockpit, and you do a T, and you check your fuel, and you check your mixture, your throttle, and your gauges and all that kind of stuff. And then you make sure you got the tie downs off, and then you yell out of the window clear, and then you flip the switch and the prop goes around and you're off. Well, that to me was the beginning of a love affair that I've had all these years with aviation. And I really enjoyed the journey. Besides achievements that I was able to gather, was to me a normal step in life, where people that did not know aviation was like, "Oh, wow, you did that?" And I said, "Yeah, it was pretty cool." So we were on a cross-country flight, and we landed at a little, uh, triangle base in the middle of nowhere, and I told the instructor, "You get out, I'm gonna go fly." And I took off, and that was my solo flight by myself, and I thought, "Oh, man, I'm in love."
Now, how long had you been being taught by that time?
3 hours.
Are you kidding? Wow. 3 hours and you did your first solo.
Mhm. Yep.
Well, it was a different era than it is today. You know, there's a lot more ground school and all the things that have to happen. Back in that day, I imagine a lot more of it was learn as you go.
Right.
Hands-on training, not like today. You got a lot of book work, a lot of tests you got to take even beforehand. And you know, it reminds me of a story from when I went in the Army. One of my commanders told the story of how he became a pilot in the Army. He became a helicopter pilot, and literally he became a helicopter pilot, you know, and that was the 60s, same era you're talking about. Um, and he was in training, in basic training for the Army. He was drafted. So he was in the training, and they literally had some drill instructor or whoever just walk in and say, who here wants to fly? And him and another buddy of his raised their hand. They said, I want to fly. And they took him over and started teaching him how to fly helicopters. And I think he said his training was like 3 weeks, something like that. And they were trained on helicopters on Hueys, and off to Vietnam they went. So it wasn't the day and age of a whole lot of overly training. Now, I have other questions, but you said that pretty much lit your spark, is just that first flight. 3 hours in and you're ready to do a solo. And at that point in time, the instructor's like, "Okay, go ahead."
That's right. We didn't have the regulations that are in place now, that I think are weeding out the ones that wanna be, to get the ones who really want to be.
Right, right, right. Because and now you have to have a lot more hours before you can do a solo flight at all. Um, so I mean, so when you ask the question, what was flight school like as a woman in a male dominated world? Flight school was not the same as it is what people envision flight school as today.
As I recall, I was just one of the group. I mean, it was like, "Okay, let's see what she can do." They didn't stand in my way. They were kinda like silent cheerleaders saying, "Oh, let's hope she doesn't crash and burn," you know?
Yeah, yeah. So you feel like you had your unexpected allies.
Right.
Because you kind of probably expected pushback and expected the men to treat you poorly, but yet they treated you kindly. And were they helpful, or did they like, okay, if you want to do this, do it on your own?
No, it was a group effort. I think the only hindrance was the wives. They I had to dumb down a lot because I was tall and blonde and
With them or with everyone?
with no, just the wives. It was like they were jealous the fact that I was achieving something maybe they secretly would have liked to have done, but didn't have the cojones to do it.
Right.
So it was like a kind of a exclusive club that I was able to join, and they let me join because I had the talent and the ability and the wherewithal to pursue what I wanted to do.
Well, and it sounds like you had a initial, you know, talent and skill, achievable skill very quickly. Like you grasped onto the things you had to do very quickly. Now, I imagine what was your first plane that you flew on when you did your first?
Cessna 150.
Okay. So it was kind of rudimentary compared to some of the other planes you've flown.
Oh, yeah.
So it was pretty basic. I mean, and I got my car in 2017. It was a Honda Accord hybrid touring. And I remember the first time my mom got in here, she says, "Wow, this is like cockpit of a plane. There's so many gadgets and buttons and things to push." It was kind of crazy. It was the first car I ever had that I had to read the manuscript or the manual because I didn't know how anything worked. It was a lot of stuff to do. So I know I've had a passion for flying my entire life. My husband has a passion for flying. I've never gotten my pilot's license. And yes, that is a little place of contention I have with my mother because she should have taught me how to fly. I mean, she was a flight instructor. She should have done that. So I have a little bit of contention about that I never got to. I flew with my mom, flew with my mom a lot. I remember flying with her as a child, and she let me fly because I remember doing touch and goes with my mom,
Yeah.
but she never let me learn. She never gave me the hours so that I could get it behind me and say that I had hours flying so that I could get my own license. But that's okay. That's a personal little contention. I guess I'm just
Well, we
stuck
had a
with it.
rule that you did not instruct your family.
Well, you have a story about instructing one of your family members, and it almost went to breaking an arm, wasn't it?
Well, he wasn't a family member.
I
He
thought that was Uncle John. You told me that story was Uncle John.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that story in a second. So you flew celebrities and astronauts.
Yeah.
Any juicy stories from those high flying gigs you can share?
From Cunningham.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he was an astronaut.
He is little.
He was little. Well, most of the astronauts are really little. Like I remember when we were going through the NASA museum and we were looking at the spacesuits and I said, "Wow, look at how small they were." And you said all of them were tiny.
Well,
Like I towered over the astronauts that I flew with cuz you did training with the Air Force.
Yeah.
And quite a few of those were some astronauts that came in and out. And you're like, "Yeah, I towered over them." Like
well, if they had a photo op, I had to
she
scoot
had
down so I wouldn't be taller than they were.
Yeah, because you were taller than most of them. What other I know we've talked about quite a few different, celebrities that you flew. So little backstory, we're from Lake Tahoe, California, and on the California side, and there is a and I have a photo of it. I took it the last time I was in Tahoe a year ago. But uh there is a uh, airport in Lake Tahoe, and it is. I will bring it up right here. Hopefully, I can pull this picture up and show the screen. So this Lake Tahoe airport is where my mom flew out a lot of. Not all, of course, but a lot of her flying was out of this airport, because at that time when I was a kid, Lake Tahoe Airport was a commercial airport. It wasn't just a there you go. That's what the landing strip it looks like. So when I was a kid, actual commercial flights flew into Tahoe. PSA, you remember the planes with the big happy smiley face, and
Yeah.
TWA and stuff like that. And celebrities fly in and out of there, and they still do on private, because it's only a private airfield now. And fun fact, did you know that the Top Gun 2, the portion that was in the snow, and when they went and stole the Tomcat and took off with him and his Goose's son, that was all done in Tahoe at the Tahoe airport?
I think I know that. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's
I think I told you about
a
that.
documentary about how that became a film. That
Well,
was interesting because they were not really aviators; they were pretend aviators.
right. Pretenders. And they had to truck in that aircraft in pieces and put it together at the airfield, because they couldn't even fly it in there and land anymore. Other than for the flight sequences and the filming sequences, those big planes really don't fly into there anymore. But anyway, fun fact. So what other juicy stories do you have about celebrities or astronauts or people that you've flown on your plane?
Well, I don't know, really.
One big important one. Who did you fly on your plane?
I flew astronaut Cunningham.
Well, no, I mean the big
Oh,
celebrity
Elvis.
that you flew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Elvis Presley.
All right. So tell us the story of flying Elvis Presley. How that
Well,
happened.
that was
I could
quite.
tell the story.
Well, then you tell it because you probably tell it better than I can.
Well, this is the story I remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The story that I've heard and that I've known is that you were in the pilot's lounge waiting, and a pilot came in and he said, "I need a pilot to fly to Las Vegas." And all the other pilots that were sitting there just ignored him or said, "No, I can't do it." And you were like, "I need the money and I could do it." So you said, I can do it. And they said, "Well, there's about 6 of us or so." And you said, "Okay, I can fit you in the plane." And you had no idea who it was. Am I about accurate so far?
So far,
Okay. And then you went to your plane to get your check started and get the plane ready to go. And they came out and they started boarding the plane. And it was Elvis and his entourage. And they started getting on the plane. And the funniest thing that you said to me is you just kept saying to yourself, "Don't scream. Don't scream. Don't scream," because you already had heard that he was afraid of flying and afraid of heights or whatever. And you thought, well, if his pilot is a female and she starts squealing, then he's going to get right off this plane as quick as he got on. Is that accurate?
yes, that's sort of
Okay,
accurate.
now do some correcting.
Okay, we taxi down, do the run up, and he's very, very quiet. And I see his hand is like white knuckled. And I go, "Okay, now let's see. The guy told me this is the go button, and this you push this in, and that it's supposed to give you gas. And then when you get up to this certain speed, going straight, got to use what they call rudders. And this is not a wheel anymore. What is it? Oh, a stick. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Here we go." And he's looking at me, and I go, "Buckle in, buddy. It's the best ride you've ever had."
That is a much better way of story than I just gave. Um, although, and I think I remember hearing you say something about that. Besides him sitting, was he dumbfounded when you did that?
He was very, very quiet.
Did he look terrified?
He was like, "Oh, what have I got myself into?"
Well,
And we took off, and I brought it up real quiet, very gentle. Uh, Took him out over the lake and did a 360 up and got on the straight and narrow where we were going down to Vegas. And he goes, "You really know what you're doing." I says, "Oh, I think so. I got my license yesterday."
you just like to push that button, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It was very enjoyable.
Well, and somewhere I have Mom's flight book, and it has, Cunningham in it because she had these people sign her book when she would fly them. That's pretty cool. Any other juicy stories or ones that you just don't want to tell?
Oh, some I can't tell.
Well, they're probably dead now. You can tell
No,
them
I
now.
think I've signed a do not disclose agreement.
Oh, NDR.
Yeah.
Were any of those overnight trips?
Well, I'll never know.
Well, look at I could see the answer on that just by the grin on her face. So then you went from, well, obviously you were a commercial pilot by then, but you went from becoming a solo pilot and just a pilot's license to a commercial pilot, and then you got your instructor's license, and you became a teacher, and you were teaching people how to fly. How did you handle the pressure to prove women belonged in an atmosphere that was primarily men?
I don't see it that way because I think I was welcome based upon my ability, not my gender. And you're all aviators. They used to call us aviatrix, but now we're all aviators. And that kind of led the way to where women became more involved in aviation. Young girls wanted to become pilots, and now we have women astronauts. Women want to be astronauts, but they didn't quite make it, so they can't be called astronauts.
Oh, you're talking about Blue Origin, aren't you? Yeah. I think learning how to buckle and unbuckle and egress and ingress is not exactly the qualifications of an astronaut.
Their achievement was to put us 50 years behind the curve.
Well, and what are your thoughts on today's modern, and I actually have this question later, but I'm gonna throw it in right now and we'll get back to it. But with the DEI, just hiring people whether they're qualified or know what they're doing, just based on gender or race. Making sure that we got transgender pilots and we got female pilots, and several of the recent crashes were the all female crew that did a whole TikTok before they went on. They were a whole female crew. The whole entire crew on the airplane were females, and they did the whole ticky-talky and braggy about being all women, and they crashed. And I don't remember how many people died, but they crashed the plane. I don't know if it was they weren't paying attention or they were too busy dancing in the cockpit with their TikTok or what, but they crashed. And right after that crash, I can't remember technically was that before or after the helicopter crash, but the helicopter that flew into the plane, I think at LaGuardia or wherever it was, that helicopter was being piloted by a female also, who was being told certain things, which they got off the black box, that she was being told to do certain things and she was ignoring the male pilot telling her what to do, and she was doing her own thing instead. And she barely had gotten her license, or she barely passed. Um, and I think there's a difference probably with when you were going through it, they didn't have an influx of a bunch of women, right?
Right.
You were like the only woman
At the time.
at the time. So it would have been really a major bully session if they went after you when you were the only one. And they were probably at that time more intrigued with, wow, a woman who wants to fly versus, oh, these women who want to fly. Do you see a difference in that?
Well, the one thing that has always been clear to me is that you're dealing with a mechanical beast. Doesn't care whether you're male or female. You have to learn the knowledge. You have to know how to take care of everything when you're in an emergency. And the plane will crash if you don't know what you're doing, regardless of who you think you are. It doesn't care. You can be a celebrity, it'll kill you just as fast as if you were nobody. So you really have to know what you're doing and have confidence in yourself. You can't second guess yourself. You have to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it.
Well, and there's a lot of celebrity pilots. Harrison Ford, whom I've interviewed before when I was a journalist, and a great organization, Young Eagles, is an organization where kids get to learn the passion of flying, and they get to fly with pilots and stuff, and it's a pretty amazing organization. And he's flown with that. He flies, and I don't know how much he's doing today, but he also flew with search and rescue, and he donated several helicopters to that. John Travolta is a pilot, but he's also a very skilled pilot. And then there's other celebrities who have died. John Denver got his pilot's license, and he died in an airplane crash that he was the pilot of. And there's several of them out there who have succumbed to all those controls, and it could be arrogance and ego. Weather was, from what I understand on John Denver, the weather wasn't that great, and he was going to push through it anyway. So sometimes I think there is a issue with ego and arrogance overtaking your skills and knowledge, and that can be a downfall for anyone who's a pilot.
Well, I think that's a bigger trap for men than it is for women.
Is it?
Yeah. Women are more of a risk, where men are more of a dreamer.
Okay.
You know,
Men are more willing to take those risks.
well, yeah, you go out there and you've got a gusty wind blowing and you got a point coming in and it doesn't look good. A woman will say, we cancel today, we'll fly tomorrow, where a guy will know, I can push through it.
Because I'm a man, so
Yeah.
I can man through it. Where a woman is like, yeah, that doesn't look so pretty.
Yeah, I seen my best friend go down the runway, got the tip in the snow.
Yeah.
I would have never done that.
No.
Too risky.
Now, did he die?
No,
No,
he
he
survived.
because he was still on the ground.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of issues like JFK's son, JFK Jr. He died. He was piloting that aircraft with someone else, but still, I think you're right. You don't hear the main one that you hear about when it comes to females with the arrogance is Amelia Earhart. And Amelia Earhart, we'll bring the little plane over here. So this would be probably relative to a type of aircraft she would have been flying back in that day, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the thing is she wanted to be the first woman to fly across.
Well, she wanted to go around the world.
Okay. Oh, this one would be a better one. I brought props today, people. All right. That's a bit much.
But if you notice, she did not have a female co-pilot. She had a male co-pilot.
Oh, okay. So she had a male co-pilot. So here we go. Now I'm gonna change my camera a little bit because we're gonna do story time now. Okay, here we go. Now we got the plane, and she wanted to fly around the world.
Yeah.
And you've told this story a few times. One of her biggest downfalls was what part of wanting to fly around the world? What was her biggest downfall for that?
Herself or the conditions.
Oh, well, I think one of the things that you said was her biggest downfall for that was the fact that she did not want any radar equipment or any
No,
special,
if she'd had a trailing antenna, she would have survived.
or they at least would have found her.
Yeah.
And she didn't want the trailing antenna.
No, because it was drag.
It was gonna cause too much drag, so she didn't want it on
Right.
there. And that would have just shortened or lengthened the trip because she would have lost more
Well, it was
fuel.
taking a little more time, and
Right, it would have
she may
taken.
have had to make an extra fuel stop.
Right, right. So she wanted to avoid that so that she could be the first woman to fly the globe. Now, where is she?
6 feet under.
Yeah, nobody knows where she ended up. They say they've found her plane a couple of times, but I don't think they've ever actually found her plane. Because I don't know that they know where she crashed. She could have crashed in the ocean because flying the whole globe, there's an awful lot of water
Yeah.
included in that. And she flew from one continent to the other, like around, right? Was the
Mhm.
plan, not just like this, because that you just stay in one place and let the world go around you. So in order to fly the globe, you have to literally move. So there's an awful lot of water when you fly from one continent all the way to the other
Right.
continents. And you're going to end up with the risk of having crashing weather. And for her, she didn't want to have the drag. She didn't want to have to stop a second time. And she had a male co-pilot, but how much did she listen to him? You got to wonder. Because she was a very arrogant person. If you watch any of the old movies and videos of her that they actually took, she was a very arrogant person.
Well, she was very fortunate. She had a husband, had a lot of money.
That too. She had a lot of money from her husband, and but she was. I've seen some of those old videos, and she was very, very arrogant. And I think you have to have a small amount of arrogance to be a pilot, no matter what, because you have to be arrogant enough to believe that you know what you're doing and you can do it better than someone else because you're the one in the cockpit.
Right.
So you have to have a little bit of that. My husband, I love him to death, but he does not realize sometimes when he starts doing the mowing or weed eating or whatever he's doing, when he does it right out front, I can hear the whole thing in here and I can hear it on my mic and it's really loud. So it'd be nice if he was doing it elsewhere, but we'll pretend we can't hear that. How's that? So if any of you hear that buzzing sound, that's my husband outside apparently doing lawn work. So besides flying for celebrities and astronauts and flying these special missions, I'm going to put this out of our eyesight because it makes it hard to see. Hopefully I don't knock it down. So you did some other things that were quite extraordinary, especially for a woman. You flew spotter planes for the Forest Service.
Right.
Now, today, I'm going to give a little explanation for some people. Today's spotter planes are they are made with infrared. So they can spot where the hot center is, and correct me anywhere here that I'm wrong when it comes to how you did it. So back in today, The plane flies across and they go over and they can heat sink where the hottest part is and drop their load over the fire. In your day when you were flying, you had to be a spotter plane and you had to go kind of down towards where the fire was and find where the big part of the fire was and then shoot your way back up.
Yep.
And then the plane coming behind you, as soon as you came by, they dumped.
Right.
How dangerous is that on a scale of 1 to dangerous?
Well,
I've watched a documentary on it.
you don't think of those things in that term. You're doing a service. You're doing something to benefit the
Oh, don't lie. You
people.
were an adrenaline junkie and you loved the thrill.
Oh, that's true. But still, it was a job.
Right. But the dangers of it were very high. A
lot
lot
of
of
people died from that.
Most of the spotter pilots, they used to say that the life expectancy of a forest fire spotter pilot was about 10 flights, and they were crashed and burned because the whole point is, think about it. This plane is going in, and this is the spotter plane going in, and they're finding where the hot spot is. They find it, they flip, and they come right back up, and they're coming straight. And here's the other plane coming, and the whole plan is to pass that right as the other plane comes so that by the time you're here, they're dumping. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I have that accurate. So, how easy is it to oops,
Yeah.
oops, oops? So you have to be pretty darn accurate to do that and not end up smoke and crash and
Well, there were
debris.
more than just pilots. They were adventurers.
Right.
They lived on the edge. They lived on the edge and they thrived on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't be an airline pilot and then be a bush pilot at the same time. Doesn't work.
Right. Now you were an instructor pilot, and you were going to tell us one of your stories about being an instructor pilot and nearly having to break somebody's arm. So tell us that story.
Well, we were flying at Tahoe, and we were doing touch and goes and taking them up to about 700-800 feet higher than your ceiling, which is 5,000 feet above the ground. And then you do a spin down, and then you had to recover. And I was flying with a student called John, and I said, John, you need to let go of the stick.
And
straight arm.
So at this point, was the plane going around, or was it now?
No, it was.
Now, I remember you telling the story where at this point he was going pretty much straight down.
Yeah.
And he was still holding on. And you were like, okay, we're like 2,000 feet from the ground, 1,000 feet from the ground. And then what did you do?
I said, John, if you don't let go, I'm going to have to break your arm. He goes, break my arm? We were dying, and he was worried about breaking his arm. I recovered. It was fine.
You make it sound so easy, but I think it was a little harder than you make it sound sometimes.
Well, that's where your ability comes in, and it's second nature. You don't really think about it. You just do it.
Yeah. Well, you just have to push through on some of those harder trips. Having to deal with something like that, did it make you second guess being an instructor, though? Did it ever make you worry about being an instructor and the person not listening and killing you both?
No, because if you realize that this guy is not going to be a good pilot, either you fire yourself or you fire him. You say, you need to get another instructor because you're not listening to me.
Right.
I'm here to save your life, and you're here to do stupid stuff.
Right. Are you trying to prove some ego trip or something
Yeah.
like that?
I made a
Well,
lot of them mad.
you made a lot of them mad, especially because you were the female and you're their pilot instructor. So
Yeah.
you're, and we call that PI, flight instructor, pilot instructor, or IP, depends on where you're at. A lot of them are IP, instructor pilot. I know that's what it is in the military. Now I know you, besides flying with Forest Service, you also flew with Civil Air Patrol,
Yes.
and you flew test planes for the Civil Air Patrol. Now, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were in Civil Air Patrol because you couldn't be in the Air Force
Well, at that
as a
time, you
pilot.
didn't have women pilots in the Air Force, but you could be a woman pilot in the Civil Air Patrol, which was attached to the Air Force.
Right, right. So that was the, like, the loophole,
Yeah.
basically. But you were a test pilot for them, right?
Well, sort of.
Well, you tested new aircraft.
I tested new aircraft to see their capabilities and what they would do in a certain flight configuration.
Now, I have to say, I think that's pretty ironic that you couldn't fly for the Air Force because you're a woman, but you can test the planes to see if they're any good as a woman.
Yeah.
You would think that they would be like, well, we got to have the men test them first, make sure they're any good before we put a woman on it. But no, we'll let the women test them.
Oh, they didn't care. Whether you're a female or male, if you died, you died. And if you survived, yay.
Well, and I know you've lost friends that were pilots
Yeah.
back in the day. I know one astronaut you said that that died, and I know that there was you dated a if I'm not mistaken, you dated a pilot that was on the Thunderbirds that passed away. I see that grimace on your face.
Yeah.
That
Bad times.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it happens, right?
Yeah.
Were you there? Do you remember what happened?
No.
No. Or are you just saying I don't want to talk about
I
that?
don't
Skip
want to
over it.
talk about it. Yeah.
Skip over that one. Okay. So flying for the Forest Service and flying for Civil Air Patrol, what was it like tackling those rugged, high stakes missions?
When you become a aviator and you have achieved your personal goals of getting different certificates and being qualified to fly different aircraft, you become very astute. I had a logbook or a flight book that actually got from the Air Force. It had all the manual um, instructions on all these aircraft, so I could flip over and read it down and be current.
Right.
But today's thing is so automated, and I don't really call them pilots. I just call them,
Button pushers.
yeah, really passengers that can push this button to do that thing. And
Well, yeah, I think there is a difference today with a lot of pilots. I spoke to a pilot a couple of years ago, and he's like, I can't wait to retire. He was a commercial airline pilot. I was it's when I was driving Uber back in Reno, and I was picking up this pilot from his hotel, taking him to the airport for his flight. And I asked him what was it like, and he said, I hate all these new young pilots because they're not really they're not really being trained properly, and a lot of these newer aircraft have automated stuff, and it's getting even more so that with the auto takeoff and auto landing on some aircraft now, which takes away the skills, takes away your training and your capabilities, because it's kind of like The best analogy I can give to this, and tell me if you think it's accurate, but it's kind of like when automatic drive started in cars and you took away the manual transmissions and people no longer had to learn how to drive a car. The car pretty much drove itself. You just had to steer it. Now it's obviously a lot more than that, and then there's a lot more to it than that. But even when you drive a manual car, you had to monitor the gas pedal, the brake, the clutch, shifting in the right timing. You listened to your engine because you could hear it. I literally taught myself how to drive a manual transmission in my dad's shop parking lot with cars that didn't run, because me and my friend Kristen and her brother and my brother and other friends, we would line up in the cars and we would all race each other in cars that didn't run. And we would get the keys out of my dad's shop and we would put them all into the ignition so they would, what we did it for was so it would unlock the steering column. But 90% of the cars in my dad's shop or in his parking lot where he's getting ready to work on these cars were manual transmission cars. And we would drive and we would do the clutch and we'd do the brake and we'd do the gas pedal and we made the sound ourselves. And that's when we shifted. And we knew when to shift based on what the sound of the engine makes. And there's a lot of correlation to that with flying aircraft because you listen to your plane, right?
Right.
And you know what your plane is doing, and you read your instruments and you read your panels. Well, in a car, you have your tack, and you watch that. You don't want it to get into the red. So on an aircraft, you want to watch the horizon. You want to make sure that the plane stays this direction and not this direction. And how easy is it to end up this direction and not realize it? Mom?
Pretty hard.
It's hard?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was easy.
Mm-mm.
I thought it was easy for you to be upside down and not realize it if you're not paying attention to your tack.
Oh, no.
Okay, so it's not. I've heard it's easy to end up accidentally upside down
I don't
because
think
you're not
so.
paying attention.
I've never been upside down unless I wanted to be.
Unless you wanted to be. Did you ever give the bird?
Watch the birdie.
Well, now you did tell me that was a joke. How did you know? Why do you fly with a duck? That was an old joke you used to tell. Tell that joke.
Well, how do you know that you're not flying upside down? You throw a duck out and if it falls that way, that's where the ground is.
See, so your joke says you can accidentally be upside down. I know you can accidentally be upside down if you're not paying attention to your things, your horizon. You get lost. It has happened to pilots. It
No,
can
pilots
happen.
do not get lost. They get disoriented.
Okay, and that's how you would be upside down, is you're disoriented. I like how she's like, that can't happen to me, but it can happen. Just whether or not it happened to you is a different story. So another cool thing, I'll find it here in a second. So if I recall, when you were a diplomat with the Foreign Service, State Department, you flew with some other dignitaries over in Budapest as a guest with them, and you got to fly with them. How was that?
Well, when you live in that type of a world, it was quite normal. Now that I look back on it, it was quite extraordinary. Yeah, that's the word.
Well, I mean, yeah, because that was a communist country at the time.
Yeah.
And you were an American diplomat and you were flying with a bunch of communists.
I'm out in the countryside, had a T-bird with the rooftop that slid back, and all of a sudden I look up and here comes this fully loaded weapons hanging down from the I'm going, oh, We didn't know they had those.
Yeah,
So
right.
I went and talked to the people upstairs.
You said, I'm going to go fly with them. Or you went and told on them.
Went and told them.
That's pretty funny. Now, I don't know if you can tell the story, but you told me one time a while back that you flew with the DEA.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story? I mean, I'm sure it's not classified, or is it classified?
No, it was just, I was in charge of housing, and we lived on a couple of different islands, and uh, we flew over to an island that we were looking for a, a house for a agent. They thought they were golden. And I said they had picked out this really, really nice house. And I go, "Nope, sorry, can't have it." "What do you mean you can't have it?" "Well, because I am the top dog in this fight, and you just lost."
Oh,
They go,
no.
"Oh." I said, "So you better be nice to me because I got you by the cojones."
So did they take you out flying so you could fly with them to get you to give them a house that they wanted?
Not quite.
So any other secrets that you can spill about flying with as a diplomat or with the DEA or CIA or any of those other people, or do you got to keep all those under your hat? Uh-uh. I won't say a word. Now I know that one of the things that you got to do is, and I will pull out the picture to show. So you flew on Air Force One.
Yep.
When President George W. was president. How did that moment hit, and what was the vibe on board? How did that feel?
They were extremely nice, which surprised me. I thought there would be a lot of arrogance flying around, but they just came out as normal people, which kind of surprised me because at the level that they worked in was a pretty high level in the government, and to find out that they were really just like me, just a person doing their job, and we became friends, and I think the biggest achievement that I can say for myself is to make people your friend,
Right,
and then you have a lot more camaraderie and the willingness to go the next mile type of thing.
right. So, what would you say was the toughest barriers that you had to face as a woman pilot in the 1960s and 70s?
Well, to me, they weren't barriers. I didn't I didn't think that way. I always believed in myself and my abilities, and you know, when you took a flight or you took a charter or you took somebody that didn't know you, uh, you hold their lives in your hands with your capability. And I believed in myself to the point that I really didn't worry about it. It was something either to ignore or to achieve.
Okay.
I'll prove you wrong was your
So you
attitude.
just kind of ignored the skeptics. And that was the next question. How did you shut down the skeptics? And it sounds like to me, your way of shutting down skeptics is to shut it out. Like you
Yeah.
didn't pay any attention to it and you didn't let it into your purview.
No, it's
You
just
just did what
noise.
you were going to do, and it was just noise, white noise that you didn't need to listen to, and
Right.
you just moved on past it. Um, and overcoming the wives' jealousies, and I'm sure some of the wives' jealousies were not just because you were a woman, but you were a beautiful blonde bombshell of a woman. You were not. You didn't. I'm trying to think of a historical person that was really not very attractive.
How about Eleanor Roosevelt?
Yeah, she was not very attractive. you
But
know.
she was really brilliant,
But you were a Jackie O.
sort of.
You know, you were a beautiful woman and you were tall, gorgeous. You went from modeling to becoming a pilot. So obviously you had something there. And I could see the intimidation probably with the wives when they would come in. I'm sure there was jealousy there, not just because you were a woman, but because you were intimidating.
Yeah, that I see a lot of the envy in their eyes that I really wanted to do that, but I'm a housewife.
Right.
And that was, to me, I thought that was very sad that they didn't have the gumption or the wherewithal to say, this is not satisfying me. I want to do something else and go do it.
Well, what about also that the expectation for wives to be at home, homemaker, baking cookies and taking care of the children when you were out flying? I mean, as a child of a woman pilot, um, I had a nanny and she would always point out the planes. And even when my mom was with me, I would point at a plane flying over and I'd say, "Mama." And my mom would be right with me and she'd go, "No, Mama's right here." And I would argue with her, "No, Mama is up sky." And she's like, "No, I'm right here. No, Mama fly." Um, but it but it was, I think it was also something that taught me how to be strong and push through things and not hear the noise. I mean, we've talked about the boys club and there's a question here I have. As an instructor, did you see the industry shift for women or was it still a boys club? Now, it was still pretty much a boys club, but you were just accepted, is what you're pretty much saying.
Well, I was a guest.
You were a guest?
I didn't get to become a part of the boys, and I didn't want to be.
Okay.
I wanted to be who I was, and my femininity is part of me. So
you didn't ever feel like you were part of the club? You were separate from the club?
Yeah.
You were a guest in their clubhouse?
yeah,
Okay. So that is kind of a very telling that you were accepted like you did it, but you were not fully accepted as one of the
I was tolerated.
you were tolerated.
And the reason why is because I was better than most of them. I wasn't as good as all of them, but I was better than most of them because women have a extra sense, I think, of their abilities and what they can achieve. And when they need help, they'll say, "Hey, I need help. Come help me."
Yeah, yeah.
Or a guy won't do that.
I do have to tell my husband that myself, is that because he will jump in to do something. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm doing that." I said, "I didn't ask for any help." And he's like, "Well, it looked like you needed help." And I said, "Well, I actually will ask you when I need help." Now, granted, he's had to learn that I will ask for help now because in the past I wouldn't. But I also have always known my limitations. And if I get to my limit, I will ask for help. Whereas you are absolutely correct. Men will get to their limit and they will push beyond their limit just because they have to show that they're a man so they can do it. And did you feel like you not having to do that made you stronger as a pilot?
Well, it made me as a better pilot. I wasn't I wouldn't use the word strong. I used the word better because I knew what I could do and I knew what I couldn't do. And if there's something that was a challenge, I would challenge it and achieve and overcome it and become better.
Okay.
But the fight was against myself, not anybody else.
So you never felt like you had to prove anything to them. You proved it to yourself.
Right.
And you were your, Matthew McConaughey says that you should chase your hero. And when he was asked, well, then who's your hero? And he says, me yesterday. or me tomorrow. I think that's what he said, me tomorrow. Because I can never catch him if I'm constantly trying to achieve more than he did today. I want to be better than that. I want to be better than that. So if you're constantly chasing your hero, which is yourself tomorrow, you will try to be better than you were today. And today's better was better than yesterday. And you just have to keep pushing for better, pushing yourself harder than you were pushing 2 days ago. You just keep doing that and you will be better. Now, there is also, when it comes to the boys club, let's say the pilot's lounge, and you went in the pilot's lounge, were you welcomed in there comfortably, or were you kind of set apart from them? Like, were you fully accepted in there, or was it kind of like, oh, she's here?
A little of both. Just depend on how confident the other pilots felt about their own abilities. And if they saw you as a threat because they thought you were better than they were very arrogant and almost mean.
And that's when the nastiness would
Yeah.
come out. And you kind of probably knew who those ones were, and you just veered away from them,
Oh,
or you made it worse.
oh,
Okay, tell us a story.
I was very mean
I like
when
that.
it came to that because it challenged me as a person, not as a woman, but as a person of ability. So I would just set up a scenario of something that was really beyond their ability, and then I'd come in and smoke them, and they go,
And they'd have to put their head
"Yep."
down.
They'd have to say, "Okay, all right."
Well, now early tech, like navigation systems, when the tech started changing, of course, that starts changing flying and making it better. Any game changers that you loved or hated when new systems came into play?
I didn't particularly grow to love the new technology. My flying was needle ball airspeed, and those 3 things would keep you alive
Okay,
if you
so
had
to our
those.
audience that doesn't know what that is, explain those.
Well, you have a round s ball, and you
And it
had an
floats,
artificial horizon,
right?
and then you had a gauge that's right or left, and you kept that's where you wanted. If you wanted to climb, it would be like this or this. So when you said you wanted needle ball and airspeed, that was your compass of going home.
Mm, okay,
You could lose everything else as long as you didn't lose that.
right. Are there any other technology that came onto the field that you disliked or that you liked?
I don't think I ever disliked anything. Everything was there for a reason.
Mhm,
You had to understand that flying a mechanical beast was always wanting to buck you off.
mhm.
So you had to understand the little nuances of flight that could really get you in trouble quickly if you wasn't paying attention. And that's why I don't like a lot of the modernization that you push this button and it does this.
That's what I was just gonna
Yeah.
ask you. What about today's modernization of where they're implementing things like autopilot and auto takeoff and auto landing? Like, I think that takes the skill out of the cockpit, because when you're flying and something goes wrong, it's fractions of a second decision-making skills that come into play to save the aircraft. So, like, what do you think about that for modernization of having those type of things? Is that hurting the future of aviation, or is it gonna help the future of aviation?
Well, I think you've got a mixed bag of maybe 3 things can be good and 3 things can be bad under a particular circumstances, especially if you're in a critical situation where you, like Sullenberger when he got a bird strike, it was his ability to save that aircraft. That aircraft would have not been able to save itself. He had to be there, pick out where he was going to land, and he chose the river.
A clip here from that movie that we're going to play right now, and I think that's good to explain to people that you can easily today with modern technology and modern stuff be not so good at making those split decisions that other people with training and skill and knowledge can overcome a severe situation based on their knowledge and skills and their ability to do a quick decision-making process. So we're gonna watch this real quick and share this with them. And you're the one on the screen, so the only one they're gonna see is you and your reaction to what he's saying. All right.
I don't think we can make any runway. What about over to our right? Anything in New Jersey, maybe Teterboro?
Okay, yeah, off your right side is Teterboro Airport. LaGuardia departure, got emergency
Have
inbound.
the sound up.
Teterboro Tower, go ahead.
Cactus 1549 of the GW Bridge. Needs to go to the airport right now.
Check, so you need assistance?
Yes, bird strike. Can I get him in for runway 1? Cactus 1549, wanna try and go to Teterboro?
Obstacle. Pull up.
Clear of conflict.
No reload after 30 seconds, and your master 1 and 2 confirm off.
Off.
Wait 30 seconds.
Too low terrain. Too low terrain. Too low terrain. Too low terrain.
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
500.
Cactus 1549, turn right 280. You can land runway 1 Teterboro.
We can't make it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
Go ahead, try number 1.
Number 1. No relay.
We're going to end up in the Hudson.
Too low terrain.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus?
Too low terrain. Too low terrain.
All right, let's put the flaps down. Put the flaps down.
Flaps out.
Cactus 1549, radar contact lost. You also got Newark off you at 2 o'clock in about 7 miles.
Pull
Got
up.
flaps out. 250 feet in the air.
Pull up.
170 knots. Got no power. No, try the other one.
Try the other one.
49?
Terrain.
Still out?
150 knots.
Terrain.
Got flaps 2. You want more?
No, let's do it.
You got runway 29 available at Newark. It'll be 2 o'clock at 7 miles.
You got any ideas?
Caution. Terrain.
Actually, not.
Terrain. Terrain. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
We're going to brace.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
Now that was a pretty incredible.
Federal investigators have
whoops.
just released cockpit audio tapes
That
detailing
was
what happened in
pretty
the last moments.
incredible landing. And then you get to the movie sequence where they talked about, and they tried to kill him basically in their investigation of, well, we had simulators. And if you've never seen that movie, you need to watch that movie, because that movie is an incredible movie. But they talked about how they did the simulators, and he asked them how many times did they do the simulation. And I think, I can't remember how many simulations on Sully crash. They had 17 practices before they could successfully return to LaGuardia. So they crashed over and over again 17 times. And what I would ask you as a female pilot, let's forget the female part of it, right?
Right.
As a pilot, you don't have 17 tries.
You have one.
You have one try. And if you think that you can do this on more than one try, you have quick decision-making processes at play. Like, he had to decide in a quick minute. And if you watch that scene with us, they were not answering the tower.
They were too busy.
They were too busy looking at their gauges. And when he started veering off to go towards a airport, he realized there is no way. We're dropping too fast. We're too heavy. Because at that point, they still have fuel on board. Because they and a lot of people don't understand this. And it's what happens quite often. If there is a mechanical malfunction and you've just taken off, people don't know. A lot of times they wonder why, especially if they've been on an aircraft when it's happened, and then the pilot just starts looping and flying around, and it's because they're burning fuel.
They're dumping fuel.
They're dumping fuel and getting rid, because you don't want to crash land or have any more of a mechanical malfunction with that much fuel on board. So they have fuel. They just took off not long before this happened, and they get a bird strike. So they have fuel, but they have no lift. They have no thrust. They can't continue to bring the bird up and keep it. Even if you could keep it going, it's still dropping. So as a pilot, you can see by your gauges and the ground, and you've flown enough to know there's no way we're going to make it, right?
Right.
So when he made that decision, and you heard him, we're going to put it in Hudson. He didn't say it again. He didn't repeat himself. He just said, we're going to put it in Hudson. And if you watch him with the gauges, they're still trying to see if they could relight one of the engines, see if they could get some lift, see if they could get anything to happen. And they were getting no response. He did not put the landing gear down, which landing gear would have actually caused severe damage, right? Hitting on the water.
Well, you're dragging, you catch you, it could flip you real easy.
It could flip you. But also, the drag, they were already coming down so fast that it would have added more drag. So do you think that a pilot trained today in all this modern technology and auto takeoff, auto landing, auto flying, auto this, could respond to a bird strike or something severe happening and make the right decision?
Well, if you have a really good pilot, he doesn't use those. A lazy pilot will. A lazy pilot will kill you.
So would you consider somebody who is hired for DEI?
I would not want to fly on that aircraft.
So how do you know that you're not flying with somebody like that if you see a female pilot today? It makes people wonder, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. You don't know.
Or African American. I definitely believe that. I hate to say it, but if you see somebody who is outwardly LGBTQ, I would probably question if they were a DEI hire, because a true pilot just does their job and doesn't worry about it. All right. We only got halfway through this show, so Friday we will continue this rest of this interview questions on Friday. We have some Dear Margarets to add to it. We didn't get to all of that. I'm only going to do one Dear Margaret, and actually I'm not, because I pulled up the wrong ones. So I will save those for Friday, and because I did have a few people write in about flying. So I had a few people that wrote in about it. So I will include those on Friday.
All right.
All right. And I really appreciate you being here. And to anyone else that was watching here, this is my mom, and she will be back on Friday to finish her flying stories and stories of flying, and I will bring some more information into it. But I think it's pretty incredible, the achievements that you've made. You're quite the hero to me. And you did some things that you take it as so nonchalant. Like, I just did that. I did it, just because I did it. And to me and to a lot of other people out there, I think we look at it like that was quite an achievement to do at your age. I mean, this was 1963. So you were
23.
23 years old. Yeah, I wasn't even born yet. And I will tell you, my mom said to me, she knew it was time to stop flying when she could no longer pull it back on her big belly when she was pregnant with me. She's like, okay, I guess I gotta land this sucker for a while until I have this baby out. That is definitely one challenge a man will never have to do.
and he couldn't do it if he had to.
Well, yeah, they can't even. I mean,
I cut my finger.
Well, you've seen the simulations with men, and a few of the simulations with PMS and birthing pain, and they cry like a little girl. So I guarantee you they couldn't handle it. But anyway, like I said, Mom will be back here again on Friday to recap what we talked about today and finish up our story about her breaking barriers. And in my opinion, yes, it is barriers, even though you didn't see it that way. You paved the way for women to fly today that never thought about doing it to they look at it and go like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And I would hope that people would want to do it because of the passion that they go out. And I think if you have an idea that you would like to fly, or you might want to go fly, you can go do a quick, they're not as expensive to do a test flight with a instructor pilot, and see if you catch the bug as well. Right, Mom?
Right.
And if you catch the bug, what would you tell them to do?
Pursue it.
All right. Well, we'll be back again on Friday to talk a little bit more with my mom, Victoria, on what she did to overcome and the challenges and things that she faced, struggles, and all the above to be a woman in a field of men.
Adorable men.
Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and join our tribe. I am trying to grow my channel, so please don't forget to do that for me. I appreciate it. Have a great night. And don't forget, we will be back here Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you again. Have a great night. I appreciate all of you.
Ciao.
Thank you for watching Gurl TauX live broadcast, which airs weekdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Off into the sunset.
Don't forget to send in your Dear Margaret questions. Then join us for our opinion-based answers. We love having you. Thanks for taking the time to be with us tonight. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share with your friends. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night. Good night.
Good night. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a great night.